Hello, here are 10 ways to piss off your photographer. I already know I'm gonna get in so much shit for this. Tip number 1. Ask them to shoot for free for exposure. I feel like there's been several times where people have asked me to shoot something for free just because I'll gain an audience. Now, collaborations aside, that's different. I remember back early in my career, and it happens quite a lot. People ask you to shoot, for exposure because you're building your portfolio. I'm sorry, does your exposure pay my bills? Can you imagine just going to a restaurant and a waiter comes out with your bill and it's like, excuse me, sir, here's your bill for today. You look at it and it's like $110 for 3 people. Put it down. You go to the waiter. Excuse me, sir, I have exposure for you. Please take this as a form of currency. Let's be honest here. I don't understand why people think that exposure is a great way of payment. Now, yes, marketing is different. Collaborations are different. Building an audience or portfolio is different if you organize it. But if a client that you've never potentially met comes to you and says, hey, how about you shoot my wedding for exposure? Again, it's a lack of self-awareness, and that's okay. Well, not really, I don't think that's okay. You just learn to accept the fact that people are very narrow-minded and are perhaps oblivious to the greater picture here, that this is your career, you're building your job out of this, you're feeding yourself, you're paying your bills, you're potentially providing for a family with this career. This is a huge thing. How are you supposed to pay a utility bill with exposure? Hey, I'm just gonna pull my exposure out of my pocket and pay for this bill that I've got. I don't think it works that way. Tip number 2. Clicking for their attention. I need a photo. Can you just take a photo of these people? Sorry, there's just food over there that I need you to take photos of. Hey, yeah. Fuck. See what I mean? I think somewhere along the lines, you messed up as a human being in your development phase if you thought this was a normal method of communication to get someone's attention. Tip number 3. Adding filters to people's work. If I had $1 for every time I saw my work being published online with filters going all over it, I'd be a very rich person. Keeping in mind, this is all very subjective. I totally respect that. But there's something about just adding a filter on top of people's work as a photographer, as an artist, that I just don't feel does the artist itself justice. It's like taking a painting, getting a spray can, spraying all over it, and then saying, this looks 10 times better. I get it, it's people's opinion, it's their photographs, but it's just frustrating. Tip number 4, requesting a photo from your smartphone. I can't. It happens every single time. You know the biggest culprit of this shit is Indian aunties and uncles. Not only that, but people obviously our age, they do this all the time. Excuse me, hi, could you take a photo with my phone, please? Oh, you want me to take a photo with your phone? Despite me spending close to $15,000 on my camera gear? Absolutely, no. Absolutely. The thing that cost, thousands of dollars just down to be a person here that someone's paid really good money for to photograph a photo from your phone. And that makes so much sense. I know I'm going to get so much shit for this one. Here's the thing, right? Like, photographers have been paid good money to be at an event to capture photos for a client. Now, it's not the photographer's fault that those photos don't end up to the people in the group photos. It's technically the client's responsibility. I get it. I really do. It just frustrates me to the bone. The amount of times I've had not just one person from that group come up and be like, excuse me, can I get a photo from my phone? Maybe 3 or 4 people would do the exact same thing. Now, it's the exact same image, just off different phones. Realistically, what could have been better if I had to accept this is if one person gave me their phone, that one person airdrops it, WhatsApps it, Google Drives it, or just prints it and gives it to their friends from that same group. Like, that would be a lot more easier than taking it off multiple phones alone. Tip number 5, not providing your photographer with food or a table at your event. I think there's this common misconception that photographers just don't eat. As a photographer, I've had a whole different variety of different clients who go over and above for you because, one, not only do they treat you as a professional who with respect, but they also treat you as a friend, someone who they know that they want to take care of on their day. And it makes sense. If you take care of me, I'm gonna take care of you, right? If you give me respect, I'm gonna give you 10 times the amount of respect back. I think it's a couple of things. It's combination through, 1, a lack of self-awareness, 2, being stressed out on the day, 3, perhaps just not paying attention to your numbers and the tables and chairs that you should cater for. when it comes to food. If vendors are present there on the night, do they get food as well? If I'm just as valuable as a guest, but I'm also paid there to do a job, I totally respect that. There are so many events that I've been to where I just don't eat, not just because of the fact that it's been a busy day, but mainly predominantly because of the fact that you just don't get a table nor food served. There was one gig I remember going to, and unfortunately they served us food outside on a table. Speeches were happening, therefore I couldn't actually eat, neither could the team. And then unfortunately, lo and behold, a bird started eating our food outside. I can't stress enough, it's the 1% that make a difference. Please pay attention to your vendors. I think it's just as important you treat them with as much respect and care as your guests than anybody else. I think it's so important that you treat them with so much respect and care, just like you would for a normal guest. I don't understand why there's a disparity, because I understand you're paying for their service, but if you treat them disrespectfully on the day, there's a higher chance that they're not going to perform to the best of their capabilities despite having received that full payment. Tip number 6, telling people that you're a full-time photographer, but then having them ask you, how long have you been doing your side hustle for? Again, if I may just interject a little bit here, drop my 5 cents. I think there's a bit of self-awareness that needs to be addressed here. People can make careers out of this, so it's a little bit disrespectful if you ask them, how long have you been doing your side hustle for? I get it, you probably think in your bubble that everyone does a 9 to 5, and that's okay, but not everyone does a 9 to 5. Now, I never used to get triggered by this, mind you. I think this is something recently as I gotten further into my career and how strongly I've been passionate about what it is that I do. This pays my bills. This provides food for me on the table, covers all of my expenses. It allows me to invest and plan for my future. I pay myself wages and salaries just like anybody else. I pay my staff, I pay my team. So why is it any different than a full-time job? Again, it's just about educating the market. Tip number 7, haggling on price. Now I know that's a controversial one because everyone wants the best price, and that's fine. But I think there's a point to this, right? Let's be honest here. I think asking once is okay. Hey, by the way, is there a better price that you can do on your service? Beyond that point, if a vendor goes to you, unfortunately, that's the best price, as a client, technically, you should respect that. There are some unfortunate people that I've had previous encounters with where they ask not once, but perhaps 7 times about price. Again, I can create a very separate topic about this on YouTube. But the truth is that if you want a vendor and you love their quality of work, you respect them as a business owner, someone who's creating stuff that you perhaps enjoy, you should perhaps respect them enough to pay the price for which they're offering you their service for. Again, take it with a grain of salt. That's just my opinion. Tip number 8, requesting to pencil in dates for a prolonged period of time. I don't understand what goes through people's mind on this one. To pencil in a date, we send out contracts. We send out contracts because it secures the time and the booking of my availability. Contracts require deposits. Deposits require a payment. Payment secures the date. Penciling in events for about 1 to 3 months, it doesn't fly that way. Now, in good faith, I may potentially hold a date, but a couple of days. Couple of days, may I just remind you, is 2. Couple of months, no. It just doesn't work that way. Tip number 9, requesting to come earlier than the agreed start time to take extra photos. Now again, also a controversial one. Every studio, every photographer may perhaps operate differently, and that's okay. Now mind you, in normal circumstances, I'll probably rock up a little bit early just to set up, and setup doesn't take that long, then I'm good to go for the agreed start upon time. What usually tends to happen is this extra here and extra that and extra this blurs the line of the agreed upon time frames and the service for which you're providing to your client. Again, in good faith, you could operate however you choose, but the question that I always like to ask myself is, where do you really draw the line? Where do you go from, at this point in time I'm going to start, rather than an hour in advance? And if you do choose that hour in advance, is that hour going to be covered by payment? Now again, there are discretionary situations where you may offer this in good faith and in goodwill, and if that's the case, that's absolutely fine. That's different. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when someone books you in for a service and then squeezes in this little sentence about, hey, could you come a little bit earlier just because we want to take some extra photos? Sweetheart, I love you, I really do. But the reality is, if you want me to come earlier, pay for me to be there. And finally, tip number 10, telling photographers how to do their job. I think people think it's a very simple thing. You press a button and you click a photo. And in hindsight, that's technically what happens. But the reality is so much more bigger than that. You've paid a photographer great money to be there. You've seen their portfolio of work. You've seen what they can do. You have 99.9% good faith in this photographer that they can capture your event to the best of their abilities. So maybe, just maybe, let them try and do that. Sometimes it's not even the couple. Sometimes it's the guests at the event that the couple have invited. Indian aunties and Indian uncles, they're the worst. And if you happen to be watching this video right now, I'm talking to you through the camera. I totally understand your photo that you need to send on WhatsApp to some Indian auntie from some other country that no one perhaps knows is really important to you. Therefore, you want to be a bit more involved and try and guide the photographer to take a better photo. I get it. But the reality is that photographer can do all of that without your 2 cents. Man, I feel so triggered right now. I know for a fact that this video is going to get a lot of heat, and that's okay. If it is, I'd love to hear your comments in the section below, so please feel free to just vent about anything that you agree or perhaps disagree on. I hope you guys like this video. Again, don't mean to offend anyone, but if you do want to vent or if you do agree with some of these points, put it in the comment sections below. I'd love to hear what you're saying. Smash that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.